Hope in Darkness is a podcast that addresses sensitive topics, including torture, abuse, and human rights violations. Listener discretion is advised. No longer having to borrow cell phones was a turning point for Josh and Thamy in prison.
I asked my mom if we could get some money over to my mother-in-law so that we could get phones for myself and my wife and just some other little tiny things.
Tammy's mother, Maria, smuggled in basic phones for both Thamy and Josh. Nothing fancy. Josh got a pink flip phone.
And actually, Tammy's grandma loved that phone so much that when I finally got a new phone that was a little bit better, I actually sent that phone back so her grandma could have it. She still has it to the day. She loves that little pink flip phone.
He no longer had to smuggle notes to his wife. Now that each of them had a cell phone, their prison relationship started to feel familiar.
And so now we're back into the same situation we were before, where we were just texting each other back and forth to get to know each other. Well, now we're married, and here we are, in our first couple months of marriage, and we're texting each other back and forth.
And where most newlyweds would have that period of adjustment to work out differences and learn things about each other, their newlywed phase played out in separate cells in front of their fellow inmates.
And as you can imagine, she had her own trials and I had my own trials, and it was really hard. It was hard at first, and there were a couple days and a couple times where I honestly thought that we weren't going to make it. There were just things that arose that, put questions in her mind.
Joshua siempre andaba de mal humor.
Josh was always in a bad mood. He was always angry. He said that it wasn't fair.
Él ya había dado 2 años de su vida predicando el evangelio.
He had given 2 years of his life preaching the gospel, and he had done everything he thought was good in life, and he didn't deserve to be a prisoner.
Entonces no era agradable ver a Josh enojado cada semana.
Then it wasn't enjoyable to see Josh angry every week because I at least could see my mom. Josh didn't have anyone. Then it wasn't fair that I could see my mom, see my girls, and he didn't see anyone. That was causing problems, not envy, tension.
Tensión.
Right, the girls. On top of everything else, wrongful imprisonment, no trial, limited food and water, Thamy and Josh still had 2 little girls at home. Marian and Nathalia were 7 and 4. I'm Becky Bruce, and this is Hope in Darkness, Episode 8, Marian and Nathalia. In this episode, we'll look at the efforts to get Thammy's daughters safely out of Venezuela, while Thamy and Josh stayed in prison. You'll also get a closer look at all of the factors that made those efforts that much harder. That's after the break. One of the things Josh's parents worried about when he left home to get married in Venezuela was that he would become a stepdad.
I was not a fan.
That's Jason Holt, Josh's dad.
I told him that's a big step. You're getting married in itself is a big step, but you're becoming an instant family, and you're going to another country to do it.
Josh had never met Marian and Nathalia. They didn't go along with Thamy and her godmother to the Dominican Republic.
I didn't meet them until I got to the house for the very first time on June 11, 2016.
The girls, again, were very young, just 4 and 7. But Josh himself was also young, just 24 years old when he first started talking to Thamy, 25 when they got married.
And I get there, and now I'm thinking, okay, these are now going to be my stepdaughters. and I've got to make a relationship with him. And I am just this new returned missionary from the Church of Jesus Christ that is now getting married to this person from a different country that has 2 kids. And I had talked to them over the phone and seen them in videos, and they were super, super cute. They'd always said super cute things. But now this was real. They were right here in front of me, and now I had to talk. And I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to talk to him. I didn't know how to be a dad.
Here's a perfect example of the learning curve in front of him. Nathalia, or Natty as the family calls her, was causing a little mischief not long after Josh arrived.
And I wanted her to say sorry or to correct it somehow. I can't really remember what was going on. I just remember her response to what I was telling her. And so she did not want to do what I was telling her. And so finally I started counting. I said 3, 2, 1, and she just screams, 0! And my wife lost it. She was trying so hard not to laugh. And I'm just looking at her like, what the freak do I do? Because this is funny. But at the same time, it's like, okay, I'm now your dad and I need to, teach you how to live in this world. And if you're not even going to listen to what I have to say, I mean, of course, this is just the very beginning. And for me, it was, okay, this is what's going to happen in my life. Now I have these 2 daughters. I don't really know how to act. And to tell you the truth, I was actually getting really freaked out and really scared for the beginning of those first 2 weeks.
Pretty much every parent ever can relate. It's one of the few jobs in the world where the on-the-job training is sort of self-taught. Thamy tried to ease him in. Then, they got arrested. Thamy called her mom to watch the girls as soon as Josh was taken. Her own arrest came a few hours later. She had no idea how long it would be before she would see the girls again.
Ay, ¿puedo decirlo en español?
Can I do this in Spanish?
Estar separadas de las niñas.
To be separated from the girls was the hardest thing I had to deal with in my life.
Shortly after the Holt's arrest, most of Thamy's family fled Venezuela for Ecuador. Her aunt, her sister, her brother, but not her mom and grandma.
Mi mamá y mi abuela fueron las únicas.
My mom and grandmother are the only ones who stayed because my mom and grandma had to take care of the girls, and my mom, she couldn't leave me. Josh and I could only count on my mom.
Yo solamente contábamos con mi mamá.
That included taking care of the girls, who struggled without their mom.
Of course, her mom's not going to tell us this, but afterwards, Thamy started talking to her mom. Her mom said, yeah, they would wake up in the middle of the night just screaming for you. And of course, I mean, her mom's not going to tell her that while Thamy's just stuck in jail and she can't do anything about it.
Nathalia, the younger of the 2, lost her father when he died in the car accident we discussed in a previous episode. Marian's father was alive, though maybe not the most involved. After all, he and Thamy were teenagers when they became parents.
Él no era el mejor papá.
He wasn't the best father, but he was studying. He wanted to make a career for himself, to give a better life to the girls, so he focused on his studies.
Entonces yo tenía que recordarle, mira, tienes una hija, ven a buscarla.
So I had to remind him, hey, you have a child, come pick her up.
A few months into the Holt's imprisonment, Marian's dad started to become more involved.
Como 2 o 3 meses después de yo estar presa.
About 2 or 3 months after becoming a prisoner, he took Marian. He decided to care for her, and he separated Nathalia and Marian. So my mom only looked after Nathalia, and Marian's dad just took care of Marian. The girls were separated, and they saw each other on weekends, or when my mom brought them to visit me. That was the time they shared as sisters.
Era el tiempo que ellas compartían como hermanas.
Marian and Nathalia did not fully understand what was going on. They just knew their mother was away.
Marian empezó a vivir una vida.
And Marian began to live a life with her dad, without her mom who was working, because the girls didn't understand that I was detained, only that I was working in some place.
Maria tried to help them see Thamy as much as she could. With Natty, That was easier since she lived with Maria. With Marian, it was harder.
Yo solo veía a las niñas cuando mi mamá las llevaba a visitarme.
I only saw the girls when my mom brought them to visit me. Sometimes he didn't let her go because or he was busy or he didn't have someone to bring her. The excuses he gave me were, I'm busy, the girl can't go, the girl has homework, the girl has to study, the girl has to learn, she has some activities to do, or I'm going to take her somewhere.
Voy a llevar a la niña a tal sitio.
From the beginning, the plan was to try to get both girls out of the country and to safety in the United States. Because Marian's father was both alive and now involved in her care, they decided first to focus on getting Natty out.
Trabajamos mucho, pedimos mucha ayuda.
We worked a lot, asked for a lot of help, signed a lot of papers so that my mom would have total responsibility for her. And she was responsible. I ceded my rights to her as the grandmother so that my mom could do for her what she saw as right.
Para que mi mamá pudiera hacer con la niña lo que ella considerara bueno.
And Laurie and my mom agreed about sending Nathalia to the United States.
Josh's dad, Jason, remembers the process as lengthy and complicated.
We tried for a long time to get her here.
Nathalia necesitaba visa.
Nathalia needed a visa. She needed signed permission to leave.
But then we could just never get the forms we needed in Venezuela, or the judges wouldn't sign something. They wanted more money, they wanted this, they wanted that.
Era muy difícil.
And it was very difficult. It was very difficult throughout this process.
That's probably an oversimplification. The efforts, like the work to win Thamy and Josh's freedom, would drag on for months.
We tried for a year to get the justice system for children to go into the prison just so Thamy could sign a paper. That's all we needed, was just Tammy's signature on a paper. And we couldn't get them.
To be clear, getting the girls to the U.S. was not a new plan. From the beginning, when Josh and Thamy got married, they planned to stay together in Venezuela while waiting for the necessary paperwork to get the girls to the U.S. with them. But all of that got a lot more complicated once the Holts were arrested. They felt a real urgency to act. What if something happened to Tammy's mother or Marian's father? What would happen to the girls then? More court dates came and went. The judge didn't show or deferred action for another 30 days without warning. More time passed. Christmas was coming up fast. The Venezuelan government often granted clemency to select prisoners at the holidays. Thamy and Josh dared to hope it could be them. They started thinking about what it would be like to be reunited with the girls, to be able to get them out of the country. But they weren't the only ones dreaming of freedom.
So with that knowledge, a bunch of people started thinking, okay, well maybe, since we're coming up to that time, if we enter into a hunger strike, they'll free us.
The political prisoners wanted to draw attention to their cases and gain freedom.
And so that's what they did. A bunch of political prisoners all got together, and they all decided at the same time that they were going to do a hunger strike, which is they're not going to have any food at all or water.
I've been able to verify this through records from Amnesty International. Renzo Prieto, a student opposition leader, was arrested in 2014 for organizing protests against the government of Nicolas Maduro and was one of the political prisoners at El Helicoide at the same time as the Holts. By Christmas of 2016, Prieto had already been in prison with no trial for over 2 years. He led 13 of his fellow political prisoners in refusing all food for 15 days. He lost 20 pounds. It worked. The hunger strike ended. About 10 of the political prisoners were released on December 17, 2016. But Prieto was not among them.
We get our hopes up and then it comes crashing down.
And to the disappointment of Laurie Holt, neither were Thamy and Josh. Their hopes for a Christmas release and a reunion with Tammy's daughters vanished.
They received news several political prisoners were being released.
We're hoping that Josh is one of them.
He wasn't.
I guess we just kind of had hope that maybe this was going to be the one. We just needed to let Josh come home.
A plea from almost 4,000 miles away.
And so after being there for, 6-7 months, it just got to us. And it got to us that nothing was happening, that there was no progression. And it almost seemed like we were taking a step backwards instead of forwards.
As their own situation looked more and more permanent, Thamy and Josh got more and more desperate to rescue the girls, Marian and Nathalia, by sending them to Josh's parents in the U.S. More after the break. The number one sign of a bad home security system is that it's so complicated you never use it. That's why I was excited to give SimpliSafe a try. SimpliSafe believes simple is safer, and it was incredibly simple to set up. You order online with the click of a button. The box came with all the parts clearly labeled and ready to go. I didn't have to assemble anything. I placed the sensors, plugged in the main unit, and boom, peace of mind when feeling safe at home has never been more important to me and my family. I never had to interact with a salesperson or a technician, and my home is secure without any outrageous monthly fees or ironclad contracts. SimpliSafe was named Best Overall Home Security of 2020 by U.S. News & World Report, and their 24/7 professional monitoring and emergency dispatch starts at 50 cents a day. Head to simplisafe.com/hope and get free shipping and a 60-day money-back guarantee. That's simplisafe.com/hope to make sure they know that our show sent you. If you're anything like me, you've probably cooked more meals at home in the last couple of months than you have in your entire adult life. And you're probably also getting a little tired of your kitchen. But I also want to support local restaurants and waitstaff, even if I can't go in person right now. And the Grubhub app gives me the chance both to keep local eateries going and to change up my dinner routine. I can search by cuisine, restaurant name, or menu item, and the Grubhub app will help me filter the results. I get a $10 perk every time I order, all day, every day, from select restaurants. The contact-free delivery makes it easy to support local restaurants I love, and the $10 perk helps me make sure everyone in the family gets exactly what they want. Get a $10 perk right now so you can enjoy dinner after this episode. Just for Hope in Darkness listeners, if you download the Grubhub app, you'll get $10 off your order of $30 or more every day from participating restaurants. That's $10 off your order of $30 or more every day from participating restaurants. So download the Grubhub app today and get $10 off your order of $30 or more. The future is unknown, plain and simple. If you've been struggling with the so-called new normal, it's not just you. But stress and anxiety don't have to rule your life. Talkspace has thousands of licensed therapists trained in over 40 specialties, including anxiety, depression, relationship issues, and more. If you have something specific you want to work on right now, they will find someone right for you. 1 month on Talkspace costs about the same amount as a single in-person therapy session. But with Talkspace, you can send unlimited messages to your therapist, and they'll engage with you at least 5 days a week. That means you never have to wait to share what's on your mind. The bottom line is we all need to talk sometimes, and Talkspace wants to give more of us the support we deserve at a price we can afford. As a listener of this podcast, you can get $100 off your first month on Talkspace. To match with your perfect therapist, go to Talkspace.com or download the app. Make sure to use the code HOPE to get $100 off your first month and show your support for the show. That's HOPE at Talkspace.com. As 2016 bled into 2017 and the Holts crept toward the year mark of their imprisonment, Josh's family back in the United States enlisted a new ally.
I am originally from Venezuela, born and raised in Caracas.
That's attorney Carlos Trujillo.
I studied my high school there, and I came to this country when I was about 19 years old. At that moment, Chavez was starting to show some of his dictatorship tendencies, and my parents decided to send me over to Salt Lake City with an aunt who had been living here. And that's how it started.
The manner in which a native Venezuelan who now lives and works in Utah as an immigration attorney became involved in the Holt's case is a fascinating story all by itself that we'll delve into in a future episode.
Every single one of those things that happened led to Josh.
Carlos saw his role as being something of a bridge between the Holt family in Utah and the legal team on the ground in Caracas. He helped them navigate a complicated system that was arguably in chaos and held together with red tape.
Thamy had a clear idea that she really wanted the girls out. But it was difficult because she understood that there were a lot of moving parts there too as well. In a country when pretty much everything is not moving forward, there's not even paper to print a birth certificate or anything like that. And also the fact that everything that you are able to do is because you're going to have to find a person who you can trust, pay them a pretty penny for them to get it done.
The process dragged on for over a year, complicated by the reluctance of Marian's father to let her leave.
I wanted to convince him to send Marian with Nathalia, and he always said no. When you leave, I will let her go. She's losing so many things. There, she'll have a better life. She'll have a better quality of life. She's going to learn more things. I don't care. It's better that she's with me because I'm her dad than with people she doesn't know.
Talking to him and trying to make him understand, trying to make him see that it was the best for his daughter, it was hard to get through him. It was bad enough that we never really talked again. So, but then that's what I talked to Thamy and said, look, Thamy, you're the one who's going to have the key to really make him understand this.
Until the last day, I didn't know if I was going to reunite with Marian. He told me, when you leave, I'll let her go.
They focused on Nathalia. Christmas came and went again.
And so finally my parents were like, well, I mean, is there a different way we can do it? And so Thamy said, yeah, there is if you want to pay for it. And so we ended up having to pay a judge $800 to allow her mom to just sign a piece of paper.
$800? I would have paid that in a heartbeat, 6 months earlier. $800? Are you kidding me? I would have mortgaged something or did whatever I had. We still had a lot of money to stuff for him, but I would have came up with that money to get her here instead of waiting so long, and all it took was freaking $800.
It still wasn't a done deal, though.
All the paperwork was ready. Then the other concerns came about as far as, are they going to let her get out of there? How is she going to enter the United States? And then the State Department in our end, I can say, they actually were very helpful. I mean, they make things happen. It wasn't as swiftly, I guess you can say, as we would have liked. But they did their job and they made it happen.
Thamy also felt conflicted.
Lloré muchísimo, porque yo todavía estaba presa.
I cried a lot because I was still a prisoner. I was locked up. I didn't know how much longer I'd be locked up without seeing my daughter. Because we were on trial, and we were in the decisive part where they would decide if they'd condemn us to 18 years or give us freedom as we were innocent. Then I imagined if the judge said, okay, you're going to go to jail for 18 years. When was I going to see my daughter?
Entonces yo nada más podía imaginar que la juez decía, okay, van a estar 18 años. ¿Cuándo yo iba a volver a ver a mi hija?
If that happened, I said, okay, God, take care of her. Protect her. I know she's going to be fine there, and she'll have love and a good home and her studies.
Solo tuve que confiar en Lauri.
I could only trust in Lori. I just put my faith in her, that she was going to do a good job with the girl, and I'd stay there, closed in those walls until who knows when.
Y yo quedarme allá encerrada en esas paredes, quién sabe hasta cuándo.
Finally, it looked like everything was in place. Maria brought Natty to El Helicoide to say goodbye.
Ese día celebramos su cumpleaños.
That day, we celebrated her birthday. It was February 7th. We sang happy birthday. I cried a lot. She knew that she was coming there, but didn't exactly know how. And she didn't know she wouldn't see me anymore. And she came to the United States on Sunday. No, I believe it was Saturday, February 10th.
No, sábado, creo que fue sábado 10 de febrero.
And then when we got her, we had to fly to Miami to pick her up.
And one of the first concerns that Lori expressed to me is like, okay, I'm happy. I'm going to go get her. I am so excited. But I'm nervous because we're not going to understand each other.
Carlos offered to go along with the Holts to Florida. And because he also understood Natty might not warm up to him easily as a strange man, he planned to bring along his 9-year-old daughter.
My daughter speaks both languages. My daughter had, knowledge of what we've been working, and she knew what we were doing. And she said, no, I would love to be her first friend.
Thamy still had some misgivings, but she felt better learning there would be government officials taking care of Natty on the plane, and Carlos and his family on the ground to help ease Natty's transition.
Entonces eso hizo que fuese un poco más seguro para mí y me tranquilizara un poco más.
That made it feel safer for me and calm me a little more. She was little, getting on a plane, that she wouldn't get robbed, that she wouldn't get kidnapped.
Que el avión llegue con bien, que no ocurra nada malo en el avión, que no choque.
That the plane would arrive okay, that nothing bad happened to the plane, that there wouldn't be a crash. That was my worry as a mother. But thanks to God, she arrived okay. Lori was waiting for her there in Miami. Then it was very good.
Muy bueno.
When they landed, we had to wait hours for her, and we thought it was going to be like a half hour, was hours. And then the immigration officials and the cops would come out, and they'd talk to us, and they'd go back in, and they'd come out and talk to us, and they would come out and say that she's crying, she's so scared, because she was telling them, what if my grandma and grandpa don't like me? So that was pretty heart-wrenching right there.
Natty had nothing to worry about. Instagram video shows the moment when Lori embraced her for the first time, kneeling down to child level for one of her famous mama bear hugs.
Lori, let me see her. It was good. I think she knew that she was loved, and it helped a lot for Carlos having taken his daughter, because it's like she had a friend that could speak Spanish, because Lori and I couldn't speak Spanish.
I will say that I was a little hesitant as far as I didn't know if I was doing the right thing involving my 9-year-old daughter in something like this, but I remember when she arrived, my daughter helped her carrying the little luggage that she had, and they just started talking. There was a connection. There was rather quick.
That first night, we gave her a bath and put her in bed, and she was scared of the hot water in the bathtub, and didn't really want to do it. But Lori took her in there and made her get a bath, and we took her in the bed. She had her own big bed with this great big poofy white comforters and pillows, and she just snuggled right in there and fell right asleep. So it was pretty good.
Josh's brother Derek was the least excited about Natty's arrival.
I can't remember why. I remember my mom and dad was just going to pawn me off and make me babysitter all the time. And I was like, I'm not going to sit home, watch this kid that I don't even know all the time.
A Derek no le gustan los niños.
Derek doesn't like kids. He's a person, he's not hard-hearted, but he's a little tough. And at the beginning, he was bothered to have Nathy. But afterwards, it was Uncle Derek, and he had to accept it.
Tío Derek, tío esto, y él tenía que ceder.
Wasn't even a week, and Nathalia had Derek just wrapped right around her finger. Everything that she wanted, he'd do. He'd go buy her stuff at the store, do stuff with her.
Take her to the park. She loved going to the park and sit there. And she wouldn't mind the best, but then, like, hey, I'm not taking you to the park anymore. And, okay.
Él no podía hacer nada, era solo una niña, no tenía nadie.
He couldn't do anything. She was just a girl who didn't have anyone. And she fell in love with her uncle and loves him. He only had to follow in her footsteps.
The transition wasn't perfect, but they did their best to help Natty feel welcome and loved.
Lori would get her ready for bed, get her bathed, and it was me to put her to bed. So I'd read her books every night, say her prayers, and I'd do it double time. I'd read it in English, and then I'd read it in Google Translate so she could hear it in Spanish. So it took forever to read 4 pages. And then she'd want one more page, and I'd have to tell her no. And then she normally was really good. There were some times where she got a little emotional, and then she started crying for her mommy. She wanted her mommy, and what do you say to a 6 or 7-year-old girl that doesn't have her mom that's in another country? Of course they're going to be wrapped around your finger, and you try to comfort them. And then I did her homework every day with her because I got home before Lori did from work, which I thought about changing my schedule for that, but I didn't. So I had a pretty good bond with her.
I'll be honest, that sounds kind of adorable.
Oh, jeez. Well, she was a cutie.
Marian would not be able to leave Venezuela until Josh and Thamy did, if and when that might happen. Next time on Hope in Darkness.
He has the internal bleeding that is actually very dangerous for him.
The family's lawyer in Venezuela says a judge has ordered Josh to be taken to a hospital immediately.
The pneumonia or the bronchitis.
The jail refuses to comply.
I am pleading as a mom to please don't let him lay there and just die.
Hope in Darkness is written and produced by me, Becky Bruce. Additional producing and editing came from Nina Ernest. Sound mixing by Trent Sell. Our executive producer is Cheryl Worsley. Original theme composed by Michael Bondmiller. Additional voice work provided by Rebecca Cressman and Alex Curie. Special thanks to Josh and Thamy Holt and their family for sharing their experiences and story. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Hope Darkness Pod or online at hopedarkness.com. And your feedback is always helpful. Drop us a rating or review wherever you listen. Hope in Darkness is a KSL podcast.